Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Tutundjian de Vartavan.
This is correct.
This is correct. You are an Egyptologist, archaeologist, philosopher, archaeobotanist.
That's correct.
Many, many titles and a very interesting life. But before we delve into all of that, about what you're doing in Yerevan and in Armenia, your name is so interesting.
Well,
De
yes.
Vartavan. I've never heard it before.
My name actually bears our family history, and it's the first time I talk about this. I want to say this because I've been here 6 years, and nobody ever asked me about this.
Nobody asked you? With a name like that?
No.
We're usually curious.
Except some of my closest friends, of course, and you know, family members. But yes, it is bizarre in a way. Our former name was Vartavan.
Vartavan.
It was Francicized.
Former meaning how former?
Our family history is extremely precise in 1730. We know every step of our history till today.
That's very uncommon for, for Armenians, right?
Yes. Well, the tradition has it, and I'll say it for the first time, it has never been said in Armenia, and I'm the last Melik Vartavan.
So I'm in the presence of some...
Melik, from the Sunnic.
Excuse me.
No, it's okay.
That's very interesting. Okay, where were you born?
In France.
And your father?
In Egypt.
And your grandfather?
In Constantinople.
And your great-grandfather?
In Constantinople too. You can ask me back again.
Oh, no,
the previous one in Greece, and the previous one in Sunnic. That's it. And then we're at Melik Vartavan. And I can give you that name. Melik Vartavan, Haji Hagop, Tepan, then there was, of course, Mardiros, my great-grandfather, Telemac, my grandfather, Antranik, my father, and myself. Professor Yusen, who is one of the leading specialists on Meliks, wrote me a letter and said that I was probably an Orbeli.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Because he says, Vartavan, the village, is today north of Khapan. It was, until a few years ago, I couldn't find it because it was still under its ancient Azeri name, Verin Kyotaglu.
Wow.
And when the ancient names of the regions were put back on the map around 2000, I suppose, suddenly Vartavan appeared exactly where our familiar tradition said it was. And later on, Professor Yusen, who asked me about the family history, and I gave him the details we had, said, well, you're most probably an Orbeli offshoot, because the entire area belonged to the Orbeli family. Now, the tradition is very precise. In 1730, the Sultan of Turkey invited us, that is my ancestor, the Melik Vartavan, to take 16 out of 38 monopolies of tobacco in the Ottoman Empire. We left Sunnic, which was at the time we said Greater Karabakh. We didn't say Sunnic. In our family tradition, we always said we come from Karabakh. My ancestor being Melik Vartavan, in the Ottoman Empire, the titles of Meliks were absolutely not recognized, except on an informal base. Okay. But the tradition was that you would take, following a firman from the Sultan, the name of your trade. And this is how we became the Tutundjian de Vartavan.
Tutun. Tobacco.
Tobacco, Tsararod.
There we go.
And,
it's so simple, isn't it?
Well, it is very simple. So, in fact, Tutundjian de Vartavan means just the tobacco traders coming from Vartavan. That's all.
A lot, you know, the eye color is interesting.
Oh, that's a completely different story.
What? Oh, your mother was French.
It's not my mother.
Okay.
It's my grandmother on the Cappadocian side. Okay. That is, my look, my physical look is not that of an Orbeli at all, unlike my father. My father and my brother are very Orbeli looking, that is, bold, stocky man. I'm a Gulbenkian of aspect, a Koyimjan Gulbenkian. We're all the same on that side. They're all green-eyed like this.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm still...
my cousin Unjan Gulbenkian could vouch it if you wouldn't put her near me. My aunts, who were half Gulbenkian Unjan, Meline, had exactly the same eyes as me.
Is that right?
Exactly. We even suspect we have Celtic Galatian blood mixed with Cappadocian and Armenian, and that gives this.
This? The whole package.
There's the whole thing, the whole package.
So, heritage coming from Sunnic. Long, interesting, colorful, princely family history. Born in Paris.
Made noble again in Egypt not so long ago.
Oh, okay. See, the story continues.
My grandfather was made a prince of Egypt by Fuad I. Well, Bey. In Egypt, they had two titles, Pasha and Bey. He was made a Bey. He was chief of the Armenian community, but made a bay not for that, made a bay for creating the relations between Egypt and Japan and China. Can you believe this?
No.
I have a photograph of him in kimono in Yokohama in 1914 with Armenian Telemaque.
Okay, so here's Christian, born in France, educated.
In Paris, in Neuilly, in the 16th district.
Okay.
Which is supposed.
Which hospital?
Hospital. It was in Neuilly, but I was raised in the 16th district, which is a very well-known.
And from a very young age, you were a born Egyptologist.
Yes.
You had it in
Since
your,
prior
I don't know, in your spirit, in your genes, in your brain cells. I don't know.
Maspero was a very great French Egyptologist. Used to say that once the Egyptian dog has bitten you, the bite remains forever. But at least you need to be bitten at the beginning, so something must trigger it. For me, remember my family was from Egypt, from Alexandria. But in Alexandria, the community was watching towards Europe, not towards ancient Egypt. But I was receiving letters from my beloved aunts, Meline and Lezinka, from Eniskui, my grandmother, and they were beautiful Egyptian stamps at the time, extremely beautiful, almost like 3-4 centimeters long, with scenes of ancient Egypt, bas-relief, views of the pyramids. And I think I have been touched by the grace of Egyptian art. This is what triggered the engine.
You studied, went to England?
The University of London, yes, University College.
And you became an Egyptologist.
Yes.
And at the ripe age of 23, you made a discovery that was written and today is, I don't know what the word is, validated or recognized in the world of Egyptology.
As the example of the new scientific Egyptology.
You were writing your dissertation, you were doing research, it was part of...
Yeah, I was doing my MSc thesis at the University College, and it had to be part archaeobotany, part Egyptology. I've had the chance to have an excellent professor called Gordon Hillman, who is one of the top leading specialists in the world, top archaeobotanist. We became very good friends, apart from me being his student. And I would never have thought that going to the Royal Botanical Garden, I would stumble upon Carter's private boxes. And the fact is to be able to make the connection between the boxes and Tutankhamun's tomb and excavation, well, that was my part.
Yeah.
In fact, to make it short, there were numbers on the box. I knew Carter had published the catalogue of objects found by Carter had been published by the Griffith Institute in Oxford. Well, by the time I traveled from the Royal Botanical Garden to UCL to establish the connection, well, once this was made, and it was a very big discovery.
I was reading, and it said that your study and analysis of plant material from Tutankhamun's grave led to the first scientific virtual reconstruction of an ancient Egyptian landscape.
Yeah, this is true.
That's very cool.
And I don't know if it doesn't still remain the first and only one, because the Tutankhamun plant remains were of such richness that it allowed science and scientific techniques to be applied to such a level that we were able to visually reconstruct out of 50 photographs, combining 50 photographs of plant to actually represent or to express what Tutankhamun could have seen with his own eyes just prior to before dying.
So it was a new way of looking at...
No, I developed, my PhD is called Combined System Analysis for the interpretation of the Tutankhamun plant remains. Combined Systems Analysis, that is, I use ecological compatibilities of plants with statistics to be able to say this seed in the silo came from such field of such environment and then was contaminated in the silo, but then removed, then we could reconstruct such landscape. It's a bit complicated, but basically it allows you to visualize in the end what an ancient Egyptian field was like.
Yeah, it's amazing how many different disciplines you have to apply.
It's multidisciplinary, yes. Yeah, like this center, same thing. We combine chemistry, archaeobotany, botany, linguistics. We do a lot of things here.
So what is it that motivates Christian to then, 6 years ago?
The idea was to create Egyptology in a country which is also mine. That is, I'm born in France.
You're a French citizen?
Yes, absolutely. I'm French as well. I'm also a superior officer of the French Navy, which very little.
Yeah, I read that somewhere. How does that happen? But okay,
I am still, as I speak.
Okay.
And that also I've never said, and the Navy knows very well that I'm here. But the fact is, I'm also Armenian and very proud to be. And I landed here without real preparation, really. It was more a test to be able to see if it could be done.
Okay, but had you been to Armenia before as a tourist?
6 years before, in 2000. And I always said I will be back. I will be back on a longer base, and nobody believed me.
Did you sort of kind of have an idea
that would come forever? Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
And nobody, if I had said it this way, I think people would have believed it even less. When I was in a taxi with my daughter and my wife, and my mother was on the sidewalk crying, and we had 250 kilos of luggage, and I had sold and thrown and given everything. I really thought for a minute I was completely mad, really. It was one of the most courageous and difficult decisions in my entire life. And then I said to the taxi, Charles de Gaulle. And this is how we did it. This was a very difficult moment. After that, it was when we landed, it was a matter, everything would be played very quickly. If it wasn't for Professor Simonian, I knew it would be...
Had you made connections with
Never.
him? And he's the rector
He's the present rector of this university. Right. We had a meeting with Professor Simonian, and Professor Simonian's decision was taken in a matter of minutes on the basis of a few documents, including the Times and other things, and particularly the recommendation of Professor Harutunian and of Meroujan Garabedian. And from then on, once the decision was taken with Professor Simonian, the rules of the university say that the High Scientific Council must validate. So we had to wait. He made a decree, but it obviously had to be validated by the High Scientific Council. And 6 months later, there was a big meeting. There was about approximately 64 members present. And Professor Simonian asked if anybody has anything to say against the creation of Egyptology and Egyptology Center, he must speak now or never.
Hold your peace.
There was one or two questions about the financial issues, actually. And then the vote was made, and then to my surprise, the whole committee rose its hand in a single moment. And when he said, now we vote for, there were smiles everywhere, and this is how Egyptology was created in the country.
I was born in Armenia.
Yes, it was a very surprising and very big moment in my life.
Did you know that this was going to happen, or was this your plan?
We took an enormous risk of landing first and trying to create after.
So.
And my destiny apparently was to be the director of this center. And I must say that the Republic of Armenia, and not only the university, but the High Committee for Science, which is supporting this center, have put the red carpet for me. I mean, I have a center, a freedom to do anything I wish, a staff. The only problem are, like for everybody else, our salaries, which are extremely low, too low, as a matter of fact. But I've just learned yesterday we have a 10% increase. But since we pay taxes, it just doesn't amount to that. But the fact is, in the years to come, this has to be solved. We cannot continue.
Yeah, of course.
When I see that the base soldier is paid more than I am, I don't say he is on the front line, but maybe I am too in other ways. And this needs to be rectified. And for me, as a matter of fact, it's one thing, but we must think about the next generation.
Of course.
Well, we should be very careful then to be able to sustain these people. And this is a common problem in university. Many scholars here come and say, my student has just left for Canada.
Unfortunately.
Or America.
But it will come. It's this hemorrhage.
No, I trust very much our government, as a matter of fact, and Armenians. Armenians have their own ways of doing things, which is sometimes very slow in a way. But we have another few progresses this week. We saw a few improvements, which come just like that. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see the center going in the future? I don't know if you're aware, but the past 2 weeks ago, we sent to the 1,700 scholars who read our newsletter an example of the first vocalization of an ancient Egyptian text. Ancient Egyptian has never been vocalized. I've developed a system to vocalize it, and
it has never been. So when you see
an ancient Egyptian text, you only see the consonants.
You interpret it. You don't read it.
No. You transliterate it, but like in Arabic, you only have the consonants.
There are no vowels.
No vowels. I've developed a system to restitute the vowels.
Okay.
This is presently examined by the 7 international scholars who are linked to this center. we have already the answers from 5. I'm waiting for another 2. And if there is no major opposition, then we will make an announcement during an official meeting somewhere outside Armenia, I suppose, because so that other foreign colleagues. We have this financial issue now which has become a primary problem, and my idea is to create a foundation of Egyptology to sustain this center in this country or elsewhere, I don't know. So I'm officially raising a first $250,000 to put it as an endowment, and then another $250,000 to support the excavation. Remember, an excavation costs from $10,000 to $20,000 per year.
I don't know.
Minimum, right? Just as a starting thing. Mm-hmm. This is what I'll be working a lot during the next years, I suppose, because $250,000 is not such a vast amount, but it's not a little amount either. So I plan to do a lot of conferences, not only on Egyptology, but the different subjects you mentioned, to be able to attract attention on the situation. And my goal is within 5 years, hopefully, to be able to at least get the first amount of money, so that our salaries would be considerably improved, even with a small amount like this one. Apart from continuing the vocalization program, we're building a sarcophagus normally in spring here.
Yeah, I read that somewhere. I mean, the sarcophagus?
Yeah, because we cracked the secret of ancient Egyptian varnishes. We're the only one to know about that right now. And if you crack the secret of how to do a varnish for an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus, why don't you build the whole thing?
Why not?
It has never been done before. So we were waiting for the funding, and I think I found the funding finally.
I don't think there are any limitations to what any of us can do if we put our mind to it. So
exactly
if it's a sarcophagus, then we'll have a sarcophagus in Armenia. So we took a trip down your family's history. We talked a bit about your own personal history and what you're doing here at the center, creating a new space for a new generation of scholars. Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you very much.
And I hope that we will meet again, because there's a lot of things we can talk about.
We could, yes.
I think what you're doing is phenomenal, in the sense that you've brought something new to this country that hasn't existed since the Soviet era. We didn't have each other. Never existed.
Piotrowski said it was easier to find elephants in the Soviet Union than Egyptologists.
Egyptology, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure. It was a real pleasure for me. Thank you.
Say the same. Thank you very much for inviting me.